This is my incredible experience in my decade of running the Texas Mile speed events. I'd first heard about the Texas Mile after buying the 13 Cadillac CTS V Coupe because a lot of the Cadillac owners in the V Club ran this event. And it's a very unique event. They basically take over a runway down in Beeville at an old airport, and they give you 1 mile to go as fast as you can. And they measure your speed at a mile, usually half mile, usually quarter mile. There's no trees for like reaction time or anything like a drag strip. They basically point to you when the track is clear and let you go. And it's just up to you to go from 0 to as fast as you can in a mile, and then make sure that you slow down in time to not end up in the grass. Even though a lot of guys in the V Club were taking their CADs out there, some of them very highly modified too. I'm a bike guy, so I wanted to do it on my 2010 BMW S1000RR. The Texas Mile events are done twice a year. Usually it's in March and October. I'd gotten this car in April of 13, and so my first event was that fall or October of 2013. I didn't really know what to expect. I'd never done anything like this before, never even been on a drag strip, to be honest. So I downloaded a copy of the rules for motorcycles and what I would have to do to modify it to allow it to go down the track. I rode the bike down to Beeville as is, a couple hours from San Antonio. I had a few clothes in the bag on my back and just a couple tools to be able to remove the blinkers and the rear view mirrors to get a little bit less drag going down the track. Other than that, the bike was bone stock, and then that way I could put those back on before I rode back home on Sunday. I did mess up my first proving run because I got up to the speed I needed, but then I backed off the throttle too soon. Anyway, it's part of the whole learning process. I was able to get 167 mile an hour for my first event, top speed. It was a few years before I could get back to the Texas Mile with some personal events happening in life. But in spring of 16, I went back and I had a few modifications this time with a focus on lightening the weight of the bike. One of the biggest improvements was to go with carbon fiber BST wheels front and back. This not only lightens the whole bike, but it's also providing for less rotating mass, which is even more benefit. I also installed a lighter weight EarthX lithium battery in the bike and a full Acura titanium exhaust system. Not just the silencer, but the whole manifold and everything back. Not only did that save a lot of weight, but it also increased power. And to take advantage of that, I got set up with a tune system. It was one of the handheld devices. I was also learning a little bit more about aerodynamics as I watched the other racers. So I was starting to use blue tape in the different cracks on the body of this thing just to reduce some of the aerodynamic drag. The unique thing about this event is you kind of have to build a bike that has drag race properties for getting your launch, but land speed properties for the high end. With all those modifications, I was able to improve my top speed to 184 mile an hour at that event. By the fall 17 event, which was the one event I attended in Victoria instead of Beeville, similar area, similar setup, just a little bit different city, I'd already replaced all the stock plastics on the bike with carbon fiber versions. So the pieces looked and were shaped the same. They were just made out of carbon fiber for some weight savings. In addition to the lighter body panels, I'd also spent a small fortune on an engine build kit. This included rods, pistons, gaskets, head, cams, valve springs, all the pieces and parts that go into it. And I also got an upgraded, bigger capacity radiator. Despite a full engine build, I only picked up 3 miles an hour at this event, making 187 for a top speed. It just ran out of steam at the high end. Unbeknownst to me at that time, I actually had interference between the valves and pistons that I didn't know about because I'd bought the entire build kit from one individual that I made the mistake of trusting. Not going to get into the details, just going to make me mad again. I'll include the links in the description below for the full nightmare disaster explanation of what went wrong with the engine. But it wasn't until spring of 21 that I was able to get back to Beeville for the next event. This was after finding a good shop in Dallas that was able to exercise the demons from the bike and install an 18 engine and electronics with a decent tune. So I had basically an 18 stock engine, good tune, everything else the same, electronics upgraded, some new features as a result that don't really necessarily affect the Texas Mile, but it was nice to have some upgrades after spending that much money. And it paid off because at that event I was able to hit 193.3 mile an hour, a new record high for me. Having broke the 190 mark, I went against my own rule. I'd always said that I was going to leave the bike street legal. In other words, still the lighting, whatever else. After hitting that 190, I was getting that close to 200 that I decided to pull out the stops. So I had a good solid engine. I know I needed some better aerodynamics. So what I did is I took all the carbon fiber stock replacement pieces off and I went to a full Alpha carbon racing body kit. This allowed me to do several things. I was able to delete the lights, rear and front, for weight savings. It also makes it more aerodynamic because you don't have those cracks and crevices. You just have a nice smooth panel. It's less panels as well. It's lower, so it's definitely better for this kind of event. It also allowed me to put a smaller, shorter subframe back here and save a little bit more weight and drag as well. The seat went away as well and was replaced by this very thin piece of foam, poor excuse for a seat, but for just 1 mile it's fine. And this also lets you sit down lower in the bike, which makes it easier to get down below the shield and keep everything streamlined going over the top of you. Even though the bike seemed much more slippery in the second half with the aerodynamic improvements, I could not keep that front end down at launch. I tried messing with a lot of tire pressure adjustments. The trick is you want it low enough to get a grip at launch, but you want it higher because then you have less rolling friction at the high end. But if it was too high, then it was so bumpy that it kept wanting to pop the front end up again. So I had to play with that a little bit, which was frustrating. Couldn't get off the line without that front end coming up. I tried using the launch feature a couple times and I wasn't super familiar with it. I'd heard that it wasn't as good on the 18s as it is on the newer ones. I did try it one time and I thought I just gotta let it go. So I just dumped the clutch with the throttle wrapped and it tried to stand on the back tire and buck me off at about 50 or 60 mile an hour. And somehow I got it back down, straightened out, and still hit 180 that run. However, that just made me a little bit more gun shy going forward. So my launches were probably even worse after that. So for that fall of 22 run, the highest I got was only 186.7, which was several mile an hour less than the 193.3 I'd gotten the previous time. A year later, fall 23 in Beeville, I'd done everything I could imagine doing to the bike that didn't involve breaking the engine open again because I'd learned my mistake once already that way. The only real mods I'd done were axle extensions because the longer wheelbase would hopefully keep that front tire from coming up all the time on me. And then I also lowered the whole bike an inch to give it a little bit less projected area, which means less drag and ideally a higher top end. Not only did the modifications keep the front end from jumping up on me and give me a whole lot more confidence being able to twist that throttle all the way and just gun it and go sooner, but the conditions couldn't have been better. We had a nice cool days, well, Saturday and Sunday, not Friday so much, cool dry days, and we had about a 20+ mile an hour tailwind, which is perfect conditions. And they paid off. I got a new high of 198.4 mile an hour. After that event, I made the decision to retire from the Texas Mile events for several reasons. One, I'd given myself 10 years to see what I could do. And I'd gone from 167 mile an hour to 198.4. It wasn't cheap, but that was a huge improvement. I was very happy with that. I wanted that 200 mile an hour so bad, and I could almost taste it when I got to that 198, but I just knew that it wasn't going to happen. I'd done everything to the bike I possibly could at that point, short of breaking into the engine, which I didn't want to go through that again. And even if I would lose 20 more pounds myself before the next event, if we didn't have that same tailwind of 20+ mile an hour that we'd had previously, there's no way I was going to get 200. I probably wouldn't even get the 198 again. I also was now at a point that with the bike stretched and lowered, I couldn't take it out to COTA or any other track day. So now I had this issue of I'd have to switch the bike back and forth every time I wanted to do a different event, which not the end of the world, but it is a lot to do, and you definitely don't want to be making mistakes in that. And the other part of it is that my heart is starting to fail and I do have limited time. So I kind of feel like I've given myself 10 years at this. Let's get it back to track mode, and maybe I can get in a couple track days, and at some point I might just convert it back to street mode with the carbon fiber pieces and the lighting in that, and just go enjoy it on the streets again. 198.4 mile an hour is still screaming fast on two wheels. Plus, most importantly, I have a ton of great memories from these events over the years. Obviously, a lot of them are the adrenaline rushes that you get when you are at the starting line, looking down that runway, and you can't even see the end of it off on the horizon, and there's no cops, no limits, no deer, nothing except man, machine, and speed. It's as pure as you can get. It's one of the coolest events I've ever even heard about, and I've had the pleasure of meeting so many great people at this event that are afflicted with the same condition as me, as we sink our tons of money enough to choke an elephant into these gasoline-powered vessels of ours. The people are what really make any event. So huge thanks to Shannon, the entire Texas Mile staff, all the participants that I've become friends with over the years to make this one of the most incredible chapters of my life. If you like to drive fast like I do, I can't recommend it enough. You owe it to yourself to do this event at least once in your life. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel, click on the link below, click the little bell for notifications when new videos come out, check out the YCC merch store and see if there's anything you like, and live for today.